There you go.
Honor meeting, good luck.
Likewise.
Please holler
Thank you
if
for
need
helping us.
anything. No problem. Enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Scott.
No problem, sir. The phone call away if you need anything at all.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
I will walk around being robotic. Oh, I realized. A scarf.
Y el chip que tienen en el brazo que te pone un baile. El chip. Por la vacuna. ¿Te vacunaste tú? No. Sí. Sí. El viernes. La semana pasada. Sí. Fue la primera en 2 años. Pero ¿y tú no? Porque tienes miedo a todo. No, siempre voy a poner. ¿Cómo?
¿Podemos hacer el agua con español?
No, sí, el café está muy bueno. ¿Sabes qué? Yo ya lo había escuchado a él, pero venía con una cachuchita y se aventó una pregunta y él, no sé quién era el invitado, era un escritor, no sé dónde. Y dije, Carney. No, pero él tiene en su doctorado de escribir forma profesional. Sí lee bastante. Pero, por ejemplo, cuando estuvo aquí, José Enrique, el maestro, el profesor que yo traje el año pasado, José Enrique escribe libros sobre inmigración, siglo XIX. Bueno, la pregunta sonó como muy inteligente, pero ¿por qué los mexicanos ahora? En realidad era una cuestión muy sencilla, pero sonó como muy. ¿Por qué los mexicanos están cruzando por el sur de Texas y no California? Así. Y todo was like, so why did the majority of immigration in the late 19th century go through the eastern borderlands and not across the entire Mexico? Por acá la entrada, por donde puedan pasar. Sí, ¿verdad? Sí. Y no deja de hablar. Oye, una cosa con Howard. Estuvimos con Howard. Es un personaje. Howard. Personaje. Es un personaje. ¿Y qué te interesó la primera vez de AI?
No puedo encontrar el momento específico porque es una progresión bastante directa del trabajo de traducción.
Porque para mí fue leer el libro de Yuval Noah Harari, el Sapiens. Pero el segundo libro, Homo Deus, comienza hablando de que hoy vamos a describir como AI. Todo en el mundo ya es AI. Uno está caminando de AI. Y enseguida yo creo que he leído 30 libros sobre diferentes temas de climate, politics, immigration, música, de cómo está cambiando.
Como realidad, enseñé una clase hace 5 o 6 años de hours y era como global issues.
Sí.
Y veíamos los problemas con que lidiaba la ONU y teníamos un libro para cada una. Y entonces seleccioné el Singular Near, la edición de 2006, que todavía parecía muy teórico.
Sí, claro.
Y estábamos jugando y yo también traje como referencia uno de estos Sci-Fi Light Ambassador Union Station, que es exactamente la interacción entre el ser humano y un AI, pero extraterrestre.
Ah, mira. Sí, pero la pregunta una pregunta de discusión en mis clases, todas las clases, es ¿qué es más importante, la electricidad en los fines del siglo XIX o AI en 20 años? ¿Electricidad o computadora? ¿Qué es más profundo?
La infraestructura.
Infraestructura, pero sin electricidad.
Hay un dibujo de estas caricaturas en que Facebook uno está hablando y Facebook dice, yo conozco a todo el mundo. Y Google dice, yo sé todo. Y la electricidad primero quitaba muchos.
Exactamente. Oh, I love that. Lo voy a buscar. Oh. ¿Me pueden calcular?
Sí, sí, era, entonces, yo conozco a todo el mundo y yo sé todo. La red internet dice, sin mí no valen para nada y la electricidad.
Ya pueden calcular cada búsqueda, cuánto cuesta electricidad en la clima. Cada búsqueda.
¿A dónde nos va a llevar esto?
Nadie sabe, ¿verdad?
Le estaba diciendo a María, yo no sabía decir ChatGPT, nada.
¿Cómo que no sé?
No sabía. Bueno,
¿Hasta cuándo?
hace 2 años que
No, bueno, pues 2 años, sí.
una estudiante bien tímida,
Sí.
y yo voy siguiendo sus discusiones en el foro, cuando me manda un reporte de lectura, y caray, un párrafo súper estructurado, con muchas frases bien elaboradas. Dije, no puede ser, o esta chica es un genio y yo no me he dado cuenta. Pero dije, no, qué raro, le ayudaría a un tío, alguien. Mando una actividad, pero que esa actividad era simultánea, tenían que escribir una reacción por escrito. Y ahí noté que ella no lo había escrito, entonces yo hablé con ella y ella me reveló, sí, dijo, ahí conocí, dije, ¿cómo se llama? ChatGPT.
Sí, más o menos, con 2 años ya. Solamente, pues, se puede usar gratis y todo. Porque hoy estamos
¿Y ahora?
ChatGPT 4.
Y ahora ya no se puede usar gratis.
Sí, todavía.
Sí.
Sí.
Depende de la universidad. Si compran el paquete de Microsoft, viene también Copilot, que es el mismo proceso que ChatGPT, pero no entrena ChatGPT, solo se entrena dentro de la universidad. Y es como, no te voy a entrenar gratis.
¿Qué pasaría si tus estudiantes te entregan un ensayo y al final dice el estudiante que usó ese recurso? ¿Qué pasa?
Cero.
Pero sí tiene que poner en el sitio porque no lo sé.
No, claro, pero my plagiarism statement no ha cambiado, lo mismo. Porque tú tienes que hacer el trabajo sin ayuda. So, mis reglas no han cambiado. It's your own work or not. Cero.
Oh, but I was using the keyboard, it's my work.
Cero.
¿Sí?
Y si se quejan, ok, entonces nos reunimos en persona y me explicas. No sé,
¿Y qué te han dicho? O sea, pero si has capturado a estudiantes.
Sí, yo me imagino que 50% de mis alumnos están usando ChatGPT. O una versión, como Khan Academy ya tiene su propio.
¿Y en tu caso le pondrías un 0 también?
Bueno, yo pienso, como que es, tengo ya ese pensamiento que tengo que hacerlo como una beta de la clase. Y para descalar, siempre voy planeando, vamos a tener un espacio para usar esto, un espacio para no usar. Y los ensayos son para
Yo tengo preguntas sobre ChatGPT, sobre AI en mis clases.
Está bien.
Pero si se usa, pero ¿no van a pensar que estás de otra vez?
No,
Porque los últimos 2
Quizás
meses
sean-
estudiamos en la biblioteca.
ustedes dos los castigos.
Más importante. Ahí está. Come on. Con confianza, confidently. On rusos. You're gonna sit way in the back. Sit right here.
The splash zone is not for you.
Who? Doctor Perry. Típicamente llegan.
Sí.
Sí. Sí llegan. Sí, típicamente llegan. Sí, pero.
No, voy a esperar,
Sí.
porque no puedo estar, pero me gustaría.
Mira, es como COVID.
Sí.
Everyone's afraid. Sí va a venir Bob. Sí, sí. El doctor Perry. Ese no.
Sí.
¿No viniste una vez?
No, no, señor. O de pronto.
By the way, what? Here.
The skill and the skill.
What did y'all end up choosing? What did y'all end up choosing for dinner?
Probably cork and pig.
Oh, not sure. Heard good things about it.
How long do they stay open?
Oh, y'all going after?
Yes.
Oh.
11.
Okay. They have, so we have a chance for the la cucina.
Cucina italiana. Carnal.
Quizás les sea más cómoda esta silla.
¿Cuál?
Oh, sí. ¿Qué es una así?
No, para él.
Ah.
Estas no.
Piqui con el café. Lo pido. O sea, yo tengo una máquina en la casa y yo me lo hago. Y muy cargado, parece aceite, parece petróleo. Sí, muy cargado. ¿Qué pasa?
Estoy aquí.
¿Cómo estás?
Bastante bien.
Sí. Te voy a presentar a María.
Él es mi carnal.
Mucho gusto. María. Bienvenido.
Se llama Bob, pero yo le digo Pepe. Como Pepe el Toro.
Sí.
Como el Toro.
Mejor.
Pepe el Toro, de Pedro Infante. Personaje. Sí.
En la película.
Sí. ¿Conoces Pepe el Toro? De Pedro Infante.
Oh, es una película de los años 50. Sí. Muy famosa. ¿Has visto a Jaime?
Sí, aquí está.
Came back.
Nosotros somos todos grandes. Ya acabamos con
It's weird. I learned how to work my Outlook calendar.
Ay,
María.
Milka.
De Chihuahua.
Soy Milka de Chihuahua.
Good man.
Venir cámara.
She got an email, I'll turn that part off.
Corina, hola, mucho gusto. Y es Victoria.
Chris Moore, nice to meet you, Chris.
Qué gracias.
Ya.
I know.
¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás?
Oh,
Wow. ¿Qué te gusta comer?
we know the thing.
Nada, ya vengo de nada.
I like her.
De comer no quieres nada.
¿Unas galletitas?
For this, working my way west, back west, did my undergraduate at University of Wyoming. So you're trying to get back closer to mountains. Then I have to be
Que se aburran, pero
Utah,
vienen por ahí.
Colorado.
All this out.
¿Sabe bien? Me gustó el tema. Skills in the school. I mean,
I met with her individually, and I told her to talk about
So, yo le estoy contando a María y a Hunter sus días en preparación, porque un estudiante, he was one of the first doctors in the States. Sí, almost an expert, but said that he was intern because he was from the Navy. He didn't actually see that.
Pero lo que les digo es que, ok, pues si lo hacen para las situaciones en la tarea, todas las asignaturas está bien, pero a la hora de los exámenes,
what's the process called? Right.
So we have
y luego les pregunto,
this was the Davidson distinction. So we had, and it's there, you guys. Entonces está limitado el recurso de trades. Ciencias exactas.
José Hernández, yeah, he's just here.
es interesante, pero le puedes enseñar y aprende.
Así.
Porque yo les he puesto hecho el experimento y les he puesto problemas.
Yes, please, I'd love to do that list. I want to do this.
50 lo resuelve de una vez y 50 lo resuelve bien. Hasta ellos no saben. Porque si le enseñas, te va a bien.
Well, I would never say that.
¿Dónde trabaja mejor?
Everything. Fit in the,
Entonces puede funcionar muy bien, María, en la estadística. No, porque hay que hacer Excel.
Tengo cuando lo hacen mal, tienes que saber. Pero al estudiante, pero parece más.
no, I mean, they were just trying to get
Y es más fácil usar el uso de programas,
whatever the reason is. Oh, sorry,
café. Oh, es cierto. Professor of language. Chair of Department 401. Which one of the state is it Indian? All of them. Set it up. Comes in the fifth.
I think there is.
I'm gonna make a few comments, no más de dos. ¿Comenzamos a punto o les doy 2 minutos?
Los escritores de la Beatnik Generation, todos estos de los 60, y Colorado, uno de sus territorios. Sí.
Era la entrada al oeste.
Sí. Impresionante. Y fundaron una universidad allí que todavía sigue en pie.
Oh, ya.
Sí, una chiquita, influida por cuestiones del budismo y todo esto.
We're going to go and get started, so please have a seat. Grab a brownie. Mira cómo. Still the pandemic. Siempre los maestros, ¿eh? It's always the professors who are the problem. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jaime Aguila. I am professor of history at Midland College and director of community and family relations. We're going to introduce our keynote speaker in a moment, but I want to ask everyone, you have to answer one of the two questions. How many of you feel overwhelmed by AI or don't feel you know enough? All right. How many of you are experts on AI? Okay, this isn't freshman history. You got to answer. How many of you feel comfortable with how much you know about AI? Okay. How many of you feel overwhelmed or feel you have inadequate information about AI? All right. You're all correct. You're all correct. Because even the media and the software engineers, the Google, the Apple, who are driving AI, they don't know much about artificial intelligence. Eric Schmidt, the former head of Google, who was the head of Google as Google's AI programs progressed, his mantra for Google was, make it until you break it. And so they just created the software and they were not concerned about its impact on society, on climate change, on mental health. Facebook, who owns Instagram, knew in 2015, they knew that Instagram would create tremendous amount of depression on young girls between the ages of 12 and 19. They knew. Thanks to the Wall Street Journal. That's a newspaper, by the way. I know plenty of you don't know what that means anymore. But make it until you break it. So whenever someone talks to me about AI or tries to tell me what it's about, why we should embrace it, why we shouldn't embrace it, I always ask, what are you reading? Where are your sources? I want to hear, I will have a discussion about AI. I would love to, I enjoy it. But I'm not going to speak with someone who's just going to give me their opinion or cite TikTok or an Instagram or even just one article in the New York Times. AI is very complicated and very important as much as because we don't know what it's about. I know many of you are using it to write your papers. Hey, not a problem. I teach at Midland College. You don't have to worry about me catching you here. So when we have a speaker like Dr. Maria Agrabova, the chair of the School of World Languages at Metropolitan State University in Denver, she's going to speak about translation and linguistics and what that means. There is an important topic where you are going to learn, you're going to be more informed about AI, because it's just not about what you're hearing in the media or how you're using ChatGPT or how the Khan Academy, who in 2 days is going to release a new tutor, an AI tutor, something amigo that's going to revolutionize teaching and learning. And so, but it's from different points of view, different angles. For example, would you listen to music that you knew was AI created? Would you embrace an AI musician? Right? If it's some of you, it's like, oh my gosh, this album, yeah, I know you don't do albums in here, whatever this you do nowadays. Would you follow that musician if you knew it was AI? So those are the types of questions you should ask yourself. That is a much broader breadth. So, Dr. Maria Agrabova, it's all yours.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you hear me. My normal voice does not vary, so this is the augmented voice. And I will be talking about human and technology augmentation throughout this evening. So first of all, thank you to all of you for taking some time in what I believe is already very busy life to spend an hour listening to somebody drone on about drones. So I will try to draw as little as possible. But before I start with that, I also want to express my gratitude first to the University of Texas Permian Basin for being gracious hosts, also to the Odessa Council for the Arts and Humanities for sponsoring this event, and of course to the Latin American Writer series that is behind the organization of this event. So, as you can see, I am starting with a little hook, the skill and the skull. Well, of course, alliteration, so it will work, obviously, every time. And my question for you is here, can you make a hypothesis as I'm putting together this title? Who represents the skill and who represents the skull? Any ideas so far? Who is the skill? I hear AI somewhere. Who is the skull? Obviously, for you, it will be the opposite. Okay, so we have an idea. Somebody has an idea, and others are wondering, this may be a tricky question. I don't know what the skull is supposed to mean. Is it really a skull? Is it something that looks like one? What is she trying to say? So, I will be trying to say quite a lot of things. And if you hear me go too fast and with too strong of an accent, don't be shy, tell me, and I will enunciate. Because obviously the goal here is to have communication. So I will start with a very short list of sources. And believe me, as somebody who is a person in the humanities, creating a short bibliography is painful. It has to be a minimum of 30 pages with highlights. And obviously I'm exaggerating, but I have boiled it down to only 4 titles, for a specific reason, obviously. Anytime we're talking about artificial intelligence nowadays, because of its proliferation and because of its all subdivisions and sub-types, any speaker will have to go around and say, well, let's be sure that we're using the correct terms. So yes, I am a linguist. I will be a stickler about terms, and I will go over those in a second. And for those of you who don't necessarily work in the field of linguistics, specifically semantics, I will go over basic terminology on what meaning is and the type of meaning. Because when we're talking about translation, what we are transferring is not necessarily form, it is meaning. So the way that we package meaning is important, but the way that we transfer it is more important than the package. And I will share 3 very, very simple examples of using the likes of Google Translate and ChatGPT to get to translation that will work in the context for which it is created. And I have to say, this is tricky because the examples are mostly decontextualized. When we talk about translation and when we talk about using machines for translation, you may have heard a term that sounds like human in the loop. Have you ever come across this term? Okay, if you haven't, you will hear about it today. Now, I have to say that between May 2023 and November 2024, human in the loop is becoming obsolete. And the new term that will be coming in is expert in the loop. And we'll see how this plays out. When we're talking about translation and interpreting, and specifically about translation, and here, for those of you who are not working in this sphere, interpreting is the oral translation of text, and translation is the written one. And these are 2 slightly different endeavors. So there is an organization in the US which is called American Translators Association. The abbreviation ATA refers to many other organizations, so if you're Googling that, look for the Translators Association. And I hope you do, because I'm pretty sure that many of you here have some level of bilingualism, and sometime, someday, for some reason, you may have to do some type of translation. We will talk a little bit about the concept of computational kindness. Has anybody come across that? Well, it's kindness, so it shouldn't be bad. There's computational attached to it, and we'll see how this works out. We'll talk about the horizon of expectations, and the good, the bad, and what do you expect after the bad? Yeah, but it isn't necessarily ugly. So this is what we were going to be trying to see. Now, the trap that is set up for you here, by creating the sequence, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is that you already know this title, and you're already projecting, and you're already predicting. Does this sound like something that you see every single day when you put in a search in Google? Kind of the same thing. So we have our connections, we have our contextual markers, as the machines have some predictive capabilities. Now, I'm sounding here semi-smart, but I have to say, I am a linguist, I was a professional translator. I spent a lot of time working in actually literary analysis and linguistic methods of literary analysis. So going into technology for me is, well, we are immersed in it. And I have to admit that compared to people with high level of expertise, I would be a dabbler. So consider me a dabbler with an informed opinion. Okay. So you have our informed opinion, who is this ill and who is this health. We will do a big reveal at the end. There will no dazzle come out, but maybe some ideas. Now, the very short thing that I want to share with you are 4 books. One is from 2016, and it's called Algorithms to Live By. I highly recommend it. It's a very interesting take on how we actually go through life, and our thought process is looked at as a series of mathematical decisions in algorithms. And it's not dehumanized by any way, which is the beauty of this book. So have a look at it. It's really, really interesting. The other 2 I will jump to the 2024 titles. One is called The Singularity is Nearer. And there was an original book in 2006 that was called The Singularity is Near. And it was looking about artificial intelligence and its leap into self-awareness and autonomous consciousness. So if the singularity was near in 2006, it's nearer, it's coming, in 2024. And the last reference is Co-Intelligence, Living and Working with Artificial Intelligence. So these are the serious books. But for those of you who like to play a little bit, and are not opposed to looking at sci-fi as entertainment and a little bit of extrapolation, I want to bring to your attention this series, which is called Earth Sent Ambassador. And always is something happening on the Union Station. And actually the image is very interesting because you see something mechanical and somebody human together. And the whole universe of these books is an alien station that is managed by an AI and a human that gets into this loop. It's also kind of entertaining, at least for somebody like me, that every single cover of this book looks exactly the same, but the color of the dress and the bow tie starts changing. So take it with whatever grain of salt that you want. So this is my hyper short list that I will be mentioning as I go forward. So let's get into the figment. When I say coming to terms with the terms, I'm also referring to myself as somebody who has walked this earth for more than 3, more than 4, many decades now. And I have a different perspective than yours. So when I'm looking at terms like artificial intelligence or androids, I remember my years as a child reading sci-fi, and those terms had a different meaning. Artificial intelligence was not only artificial, it was actual autonomous intelligence. So when somebody is throwing in terms artificial intelligence, I'm already expecting, this is an entity. It's living, it's on its own. And actually what we're describing nowadays as artificial intelligence is not at this level yet. It's also like when you hear the word Android, most of you think of it as an operation system. I think of it as C3PO. it's a human-looking robot walking around. So when we're talking about these terms, there is a popular understanding, there's a specific understanding, and there's a term within certain disciplines that deal with technology. So I want to say that when we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're actually looking at two different dimensions of it. So we have what is called general artificial intelligence, or domains. So it is not confined to one domain. It's not only doing translation. It's not only doing calculation. It's not only doing art. And the jump between different domains is fluid, and also there is an awareness as we can expect down the road. Then we have narrow artificial intelligence. Interestingly enough, the synonym for this specific artificial intelligence is weak artificial intelligence. Oh, how well, how good it feels as a human. It does these amazing things, but it's weak. Why is it weak? Because it does have its limitations. It's a type of artificial intelligence that is designed to perform specific tasks within a limited scope. This is the basic definition of narrow artificial intelligence. Now, all the models that you will hear about tonight have something in common, and this is trainability. So they're trained on something. They're trained on data sets. They're trained on statistically valuable models. So there is a training going on, and this training process can become self-automated. And for the sake of me going to bed and having a sound sleep, I'm thinking of these artificial intelligences not so much as artificial intelligence, which in my world would be a consciousness that is autonomous, but as evolving machines. So think about if evolving machines is something that you maybe want to use. Okay, so I put here a list of common abbreviations associated with artificial intelligence. Is there any that you recognize? Let's go with the lowest. Is there at least one that you recognize? There's at least one, but I'm not exactly sure. Okay. So that basically means that I will have to go down the list and do some explaining. I have put them in alphabetical order because linguists are pedantic, and we like to look at things in neat sets. However, as I'm explaining those abbreviations, I will jump around a little bit because you will see that in these definitions, sometimes one component defines the other component and vice versa. So they're kind of identifying each other, which is not optimal actually. So let's get to it. I will start with artificial neural networks. And this is an important term. So this is a type of machine learning. What does this mean? The machine learns certain operations by using a network of interconnected nodes that teach computers how to process data in a way that mimics the human brain. And if you go and see what a schema of artificial neural network looks, it looks very neat. The structure is very neat, and the connections between the different components are also not random. But this is how the training works. So this is a neural network. Now, all the other definitions that are coming have have something to do with this type of network. So let's talk about machine learning. So when you look at the term, you'll say, well, machine learns. Well, there's something to it. It's a type of artificial intelligence. So the first thing is type of artificial intelligence, and allows computers to learn and improve from data without being explicitly programmed. So this is a very different world from 20 years ago. There isn't a specific program, but they still learn. So that is behind machine learning. Machine learning uses algorithms to analyze amounts of data, identify patterns, create a model that makes predictions. Now this starts to sound fairly familiar in the way that it works. So the more data a machine learning system is exposed to, the better it becomes at predicting. Okay, we survive machine learning. So what is MT? Machine translation. And machine translation, also fairly obvious. So it's translation that is being done by a machine. Why do we have to have a specific term? Again, because we're talking about a type of artificial intelligence. So now we're creating a typology. And machine translation also does machine learning through algorithms. Now, there are three types of machine translation. There's rule-based, which is basically based on grammar. And this is where you have involvement of linguists mostly. And this was the first model, actually, that was used. And it was the clunkiest model. Although most grammarians would say the abstract rules make more sense because they're more inclusive. However, in real life, it didn't quite work. It went from the concrete to the abstract and not vice versa. So the other type of machine translation is statistical, and it's based on large samples. Initially, what evolved to become Google Translate was launched through a statistical model. And the last type is neural. So the machine teaches itself. And it starts mimicking the way our brain works. And I say mimicking. It is a good analogy. There is a little bit of a reflection of how our biological system works, but it's not complete. I want us to still keep the understanding that our brain is far more complex. The components structured in a far more complex way, and the connections are also not as easy to track. So this is machine translation. Now we get into natural language processing. Another type of AI. We created a lot of those. So it is an artificial intelligence that allows computers to understand, interpret, and manipulate human language. So now we have an upgrade. Now we have intervention and manipulation of human language. So when we're looking at natural language processing, we have a system that uses machine learning, statistical methods, neural networks, and text mining. I kind of like this term. They're mining text to get to the gold. And what is the gold? The gold is meaning. We come to meaning once again through a different pathway. If you have a favorite assistant, then maybe Alexa or Siri, or those who do Android Bixby, this is what these assistants are based on, natural language processing. And then we have neural machine translation, very, very overlapping kind of terms, because you will hear me say once again, a method of automated translation that uses artificial neural networks to translate for text from one language to another, again, essentially mimicking the human brain. All right, long comprehensiveness, and I skipped something important. I skipped the second element in this sequence, which is LLMs, large language models. Have you heard about those? ChatGPT, you've probably heard. So this is behind behind the technology behind the likes of ChatGPT. The large language models are also a type of AI program that can analyze and understand text, perform natural language processing tasks, and is trained on, and here the word is actually specifically selected, massive amounts of data. So we have large amounts of data, large language models, it's massive. So think of it this way. For ChatGPT to perform what it is able to perform right now, it had to mine the whole of the internet. No, I'm not joking. It had to mine the whole of the internet. Now, is there a whole of the internet? Not as a static. So it continues to grow, obviously. But ChatGPT had the capabilities, had the speed to mine in a specific moment what would have been considered the whole of the internet. So large language models can generate and translate text, answer questions, and complete texts. Sometimes they can produce false outputs. And I love this term, that large language models produce hallucinations. So you have artificial intelligence that is hallucinating. How lovely. And we're hallucinating with it. I think it's a highly psychedelic world at this point. So these so-called hallucinations don't match the user's intent. This is what a hallucination is. So large language models can predict a word or phrase, but they are syntactic by nature, so they're going by structure. And they don't always understand or interpret human meaning. And this is how we come to the definitions of meaning. Are you alive? After all these definitions? Hopefully. Okay. So a little bit more. If we have to compare the two largest types of neural-machine translation and large language models, you have seen those examples already in real life. So neural-machine translation, Google Translate is one. And all of these, Amazon Translate, Microsoft Translator, those who are more specialized are raving about DeepL. And on the large language model side, we have ChatGPT or Copilot. It's the same OpenAI kind of structure. And there is a big fleet, actually, of Google AI models. I have only listed 3 out of multiple. So Teep, Phi, Bard, Palm, all of those are large language models. There is a very significant difference in terms of the scope. The neural machine translation tools are specifically created for translation. And the large language models are not. They are very versatile. So they can do various language functions. They are broad in scope. And when we look at the specialization and versatility, neural machine translation is expected to be more accurate because this is the aim. The aim is accuracy. While large language models will be more fluid and more natural sounding. On what do these models train? Neural machine translation trains on language pairings. So when you're producing translation, the language pair English-Spanish will start spitting out solutions for you. Or Korean-Japanese, it will start spitting out solutions for you. While the large language models, their range is enormous of various text data. So the output quality for the NMTs is accuracy, and for LLMs is fluency and natural text. And now we're talking about resources. ChatGPT versus Google Translate. Well, Google Translate is ecologically easier. It does not take that many resources. To sustain large language models, we require vast computational resources. So infrastructure becomes very, very important. All right. When we talk about translation, the something you will hear frequently is, well, chair. What's the equivalent of chair in Spanish? And somebody can say silla. Now, in translation studies, people become jumpy when the word equivalent comes into play, because there are no complete equivalencies, obviously. So back and forth in terms of terminology, can we use equivalence, can we not use equivalence? I'll just mention it here briefly. It is an approximation, there is never a complete equivalence, although sometimes the overlap is very, very significant. Also, when we use the word meaning, it is very elastic. It can be the common usage of the word, it can be some kind of association created by the mentioning of something like the Declaration of Independence, which is a source of pride for American political history, or a specific reaction in the Jewish community hearing the title of the book by Adolf Hitler. So there is a personal, there is a private, there is emotional impact, and the word meaning is circulating to describe all of those. So let's narrow down this a little bit. Are we talking about literal meaning? It is a somewhat fluid concept, but within it, the notion of semantic equivalence actually can be used to describe what we are doing when we are transferring one language to another. So we will be using this term here. And here comes the fun part for me, and nap time for you for the next 3 minutes. I will talk about the types of meaning for a second. There are 3 processes when we working with a system, and specifically with a science system like language. The first process is designation. So we have an object and we choose a sign for this object. For example, we assign a word to a certain referent. We select the word window for a certain aperture in the wall, and we already have this fixed pairing from now on. The process of designation is basically the relationship between signs and reference. The next level is the process of denotation. We already have a system, and we have a relationship between the components within this system. So let's see, it becomes a consensus of semantic conventions. And this means that within this system, the sign window will already have, it will become part of speech, it will be a noun, it will have gender, number in Spanish, and not all holes in the wall will be referred to as windows. So we already have a specialization here. Now we're talking about relationship between signs within the system. Are you with me? Hopefully you are, because I will take you a little bit further. And now we have, and this is the most human part of it, the connotation. And this is the relationship between signs and context. And this is where meaning starts to become fluid, because it becomes fixed at the designation, even more specified at denotation, and now context starts to interfere and starts to create shifts. So the meaning to a window, according to context, can be something poetic and something metaphorical, like talking about eyes as windows to the soul. So these 3 processes are in play. So obviously, when we talk of types of meaning, designation has designative, denotation has denotative, and connotation has connotative. The designation and denotation meanings in English and translation theory come under the label of literal meaning with a little bit of modification. And connotative meaning is obviously connotative meaning. For those of you who are users of Spanish, actually the language helps us a little bit more, because we have for denotation and designation significado, and for connotation we have sentido. So when you say sentido, you're including the context. When you say significado, you're talking about relationships between components. And hopefully this will make sense to you, because we will jump back into the AI conversation. So let me give you an illustration. a simple utterance like, can you open the window? At the designated level, we are asking about the ability of a specific person to open a specific type of, to do a specific type of action on a specific object. Easy. The denotative part of it is, the question is commonly used as a polite way to ask somebody to open the window. So you're basically saying, open the window, but you're putting it in a different dress. Now, the connotative meaning could be wildly different. And imagine that. Can you open the window with a specific, can you open the window? If somebody is smoking a pipe in your presence and you really detect the stench of tobacco, that obviously is a very different situation and context. So the opening of the window is an acknowledgement of an inconvenience. So we have drifted away quite a bit here. So obviously when we're talking about reference systems, dictionaries, and such, they would provide literal meaning. So that would be the designative and denotative type of meaning. So connotative meaning is the hardest to achieve through machine translation. And I believe it will be the hardest one for a very long time until the artificial intelligence becomes autonomous and conscious. If you have heard the name of James Gunn, he was a professor of English and he also was an author of sci-fi books. And he has a novel called The Listeners. The gist of the whole saga of The Listeners is that you have machines that are left on their own and they are regurgitating text until they start creating poetry. So connotative meaning comes into existence and they become conscious. And that was something that was conceived in the late 70s, early 80s, when we were thinking theoretically about language and consciousness. So let's go to the fun part. Let's see some examples of translations using different methods, different types of artificial intelligence. And I will progress you through non-commonly spoken language, commonly spoken language of medium spread, and a very commonly spoken language, and see how our models are reacting to those prompts. Now, my background is, I'm Bulgarian, so my language is Bulgarian. It's a very, very rare language. You haven't heard it probably. Although we Bulgarians are all over the world, so you never know. It's a Slavic language that is spoken on the Balkans. Now, the example that I'm using, you won't know what it means when you hear it, but you will hear that it has rhyme and rhythm. So it rhymes, it must be true, whatever it is. And I will tell you what it means. I'm working with set phrases here. So ST in translations means source text. So this is my first source text, and it sounds like that. Na banicата мекото, на работата лекото. Hey, it's like a song. It means and describes somebody who likes to take the easy way through life. So our machine translation models will be giving us literal meaning. So the first target text, which is through Google Translate, gives me something like, of the work the light, of the pie the soft. But it's trying to maintain a rhythm, but it's not exactly successful in that. So the rhyme is also lost here. But interestingly enough, we are expecting accuracy here and not flow, and what we are getting is more of a flow, which is an interesting result. And then we get to ChatGPT, which goes very, very dryly to the point with accuracy, saying the easy part of the work, the soft part of the banica, and now you're wondering what is banica. It's a reality. It's a phyllo, eggs, and fed pie. It's very common and it's used in a lot of proverbs. So it's basically the baked good. You look soft part of it. So easy part of the job, the soft part of the bread, let's say. That will be an adaptive translation for you. So our expectations of the two models are a little different in reality. So the one that was supposed to be accurate is attempting flow, and the one that is supposed to be showing flow is kind of good on accuracy and is maintaining reality here. So let's do a cross check on that one and see how much we can produce in terms of accuracy. So here's ChatGPT responding to the prompt to translate the first target text provided by Google Translate. So Google Translate said, of the word the light, of the pie the soft. And ChatGPT is trying to translate it and it spits out the following. The phrase you provided seems to be a literal translation that doesn't make sense. Oh my god, this is my teacher in the translation class. It's very, very accurate. And it says, based on the structure, a clearer English version might be. And now we have the light of the pie is the soft part of the work. So it's attempting to adjust syntactically and it jumbles the meaning completely. And I want to bring out this again. You'll be hearing me say about LLMs. They predict the next word or phrase based on syntax, cannot fully interpret human meaning. And we see this displayed here. And ChatGPT continues chatting. However, it's unclear what the intended meaning is. Oh my god, at this point you're thinking, I don't understand it, it doesn't understand. No, it doesn't really. It just spits out. I haven't seen this model, I haven't fed on it, so it isn't clear. And it's asking for clarification. So that was the non-cognitive spoken language, and you can expect these types of variations. The thing is, as a translator, and especially if you're not very trained one, you have to cross-check. You always have to cross-check. And when something like that happens, it means that either the machine is not doing something correctly, or you are not doing something correctly, and you have to go and double-check. The second example is a commonly spoken language with a medium spread. Well, I want to play a little bit with you, and I will use language that you don't use. And that will be Russian. And I'm using a pair of synonyms that say basically the same thing. I'll pronounce it in Russian. One says "Я тебя не забуду," and the other one says "Я запомню тебя." And then we go and ask for translation, and both ChatGPT and Google Translate come up with the exact same version. So the first phrase is translated as "I won't forget you." The second one as "I will remember you." And both of them are correct. So at this point, you can rejoice, you can have a nice cup of coffee, walk around the park, and publish your translation. Well done. Because now we will have to go into context. And let's see how this works. When you think about the emotional charge in these phrases, I will remember you, I won't forget you. In English, they're very, very close in ring. And in Russian, they are. But if you shift the emotion, then you start having a very specific distribution of which one you would use. So if you infuse the emotion of it's a yearning for somebody or you're grateful for something, you will tend to use "Я тебя не забуду," I won't forget you. It is possible to use the other one, I will remember you. But the most likely selection will be "I won't forget you." Now, if you're talking about your emotional charge is offense or veiled threat, I remember what you did. I will remember what you did. I will remember you. That will be always "Я запомню тебя" or "Я буду помнить." So you can use "запомню" for the first, but you can never use "I won't forget" for the second. And in English, if we try to get closer, you will see that we are actually flipping them. For the yearning and gratitude, there will be a slight preference for "I remember." And for the offense threat, there will be a slight preference for "I won't forget." And you see how they have switched a little bit. And this is where the human takes charge, because the decision making has to happen in the south. And the final example, a commonly spoken language with a broad spread. So this one is a language that you will recognize, and it's Spanish. And it's a very common pairing, Spanish and English. And it's a very common phrase. So the example results that you will see are a little bit surprising. So our third source text is no hay mal que 100 años dure. How many people can recognize the meaning of it? Some of you can? Yeah, we will see the translation in a second. So Google Translate spits out something which I think is outrageous. It says, there's no harm in lasting 100 years. Oh. This is very far away from the intended meaning. And ChatGPT says, there's no evil or bad thing that lasts 100 years, which is fairly close to the literal meaning. Now, something happened. And something happened in the last 8 months. So I was running these little tests with commonly used phrases between the LLMs and neural networks to see which is better in terms of accuracy and in terms of fluency. And as the colleagues at the American Translators Association basically said, if you want accuracy, go for Google Translate. And that was true until June of this year. Since September, ChatGPT has picked up in terms of accuracy. So right now, the snapshot is ChatGPT versions become increasingly better than the Google Translate ones. And I think that Google Translate will catch up eventually. But right now we have this change in the landscape. So I was interested to do the cross-check. And a very common technique is reverse translation. If you are unsure if your result is correct, try to translate in reverse. So you go from language A to language B, and then you go back. And we use the ChatGPT to translate the Google Translate version. And in Spanish, we end up with no hay nada de malo en durar 100 años. We have completely changed the phrase. So what are we even talking about? What are we persisting in 100 years? Now, as somebody, and I'm imagining myself as a writing translator, so I know some English, I know some Spanish, I'm using these machines, they're showing something different. Now I have to dig in, and I don't have my mom or my friend to tell me what the correct answer is, so I will still be using machines to help me. And I will go and ask an AI, let's use a Google AI and ask what the meaning of the no hay mal que 100 años dure. And this is what Google AI gives you as a result of your request to explain the meaning. The phrase no hay mal que 100 años dure is a Spanish proverb that means a bad moment is not everlasting and that people have a limit to how much they can withstand. It's often used to comfort someone who is going through a difficult time with the hope that it won't last. Well, this is wonderful. It's very, very accurate, actually. It also gives you that the longer version of the phrase is no hay mal que 100 años dure, ni cuerpo que lo resista. Okay, so now I'm ending up with English and Spanish with two phrases that, if you generalize their meaning, basically try to say that nothing lasts forever, but their literal meaning still has semantic charge. So the Spanish one is saying that the bad things don't go on forever, and the English one says that all good things come to an end. And you see there are two worldviews that come into play. There are certain contexts where there's an effect of what we would call desemanticization. I managed to say this word. This is basically starting to peel off the literal meaning and just use the general one, which is nothing lasts forever or all things change. And you can, especially with Noé Marques and Ana students, sometimes talk about a general situation, not necessarily something that is negative. Now, here's what a human translator would usually do in the pre-machine era, and even with the machine era. Start generating a synonym cluster and see what is the best fit for the context that you are translating for. So in this cluster, you will have all things come to an end, everything comes to an end, all these can work in a general way. This too shall pass. Oh, this is very close to the literal meaning of the Spanish one. And within the cluster of this too shall pass, we have difficult times don't last forever, better times are coming, is the darkest before the dawn, after the night comes the light, and now we're arriving. And now we have gone into a deviation, but actually it is a possibility, depending on what type of text you're translating, and especially in literary texts. This is where you will start playing with all these versions. Other more generalized, everything changes, all things must pass, and something that is closer to the literal meaning of all good things come to an end. Nothing great lasts forever, and see how we deviate into enjoy every moment, enjoy every minute, there's no time like the present, and you end up with carpe diem. And can we do a jump from Noé Marques y Ana Dura to carpe diem? Not really, because it's not completely semanticized. But I wanted to use this as an example of how much of a decision-making pathway, trees, whatever you want to call them, a human mind does in the process of translation. And it goes at high speed, actually. This slowing down is very artificial. Still intelligent, but very artificial. All right. So we're going to the point where it's kind of obvious that depending on what type of meaning, especially unconnotated meaning, we still need a human in the loop. And the more technological help we have in here, the more this person will have to become an expert. They have to become an expert in culture. They have to become an expert in cross-cultural communication. They have to be better than the mere human that was doing translations 35 years ago and could wing it with literal meaning. So we are upgrading our presence into expert in the loop. And this means that those who become translators and interpreters, they will have to be highly trained as usual. And they will have to be motivated to be in this area. And I'll talk about this as we approach the end of this talk. So who will be the survivors of the technological tidal wave? People who can adapt to changes and are willing to do so. People who will either specialize or diversify for what they're doing right now. And also remember that typically with machine translation, there's this moment of human post-editing to adjust for inaccuracies. Now we have post-editing. And we're not competing with AI. We are competing with humans who can use AI well. So that is the landscape right now. And if we believe the president of the Association of Machine Translation in the Americas, this will be the new baseline that we're starting to see right now. Translators and interpreters are essential experts in the loop. In the article in the online publications later, Anna Wyndham did a short list of why. So translators and interpreters are the decision makers. So imagine if you're doing subtitling. If you're doing subtitling, you have to balance many requirements. The text has to be readable, it has to convey the meaning, and it has to go at a certain rhythm. So the machine cannot do it for you because it will be either longer or shorter, or it will have gaps. And the decision-making onus comes down to the human and expert in the loop. Also, translators and interpreters are creators. So if you're translating a slogan for a certain market, you will have to do localization, and you will have to do trans creation, redoing those slogans so they sound natural to the market for which you're creating those. And sometimes this means that you will break down the literal meaning, but still maintain the core. Then, when we continue down the line, and specifically for interpreters, it's not an exaggeration to say that interpreters can change the world with a correct or incorrect world, and especially in high-stakes interpreting, when we have conflict on our hands, it's very, very important to be very precise with the type of interpreting that you do. Translators and interpreters now upgrade to consultants and testers. So especially in the field of business and marketing, it's not only transcreation, it's also testing how well this transcreation works and starting to give suggestions on how to build campaigns from the standpoint of cultural competence. Translators and interpreters are at the start of the loop in the communication with machines. So their products are the source for machine translation data. They provide it, they feed the machines. And not to be outdone, they're also at the close of the loop. They evaluate the output of machines. Translation interpreters have a very important role in setting terminology glossaries. And they also are important curators for literature and literary translation. And actually, their role as researchers is very substantial. So translators are machine translation biggest users. They're also the most competent ones if they're trained linguists. Now, this is death by text. I will summarize that. Obviously, the American Translators Association has a statement about artificial intelligence and its role in the future and the interaction with humans. So, the first point that the American Translators Association makes is that translators and interpreters are at the cutting edge of these technologies and have been using the likes of Google Translate, let's say, for years. And they have been using computer-assisted technology in translation for many, many years. So, even before the advent of the likes of ChatGPT and other generative artificial intelligence tools. Now, the point that they're making is that automated translation is helpful and actually sometimes welcome. But we have to make sure that we understand it is really great for low stakes. It is not optimal for high stakes. So anytime you have high stakes, you will have to include the human and the expert in this loop. And the last point that they're making is that trained linguists have to be involved in the decision making in the final product of translation. And this shouldn't be skipped if you want quality. And the thing is, translators and people who are bilingual are traditionally kind of undervalued. And this is, I don't know even why it is like that. There's so much know-how that happens for somebody to be able to produce quality translation that goes invisible. This is a very, very deeply running iceberg, of which you see a very small tip. There is kind of this intrinsic understanding of people who are using the services of translator and interpreter that they know everything because they use language. And my favorite thing to say in these situations is, we all experience gravity. It does not make us all physicists. We all use language, not all of us are linguists. So let's keep this in mind. Now getting to the computational kindness, and I want to be kind to you and bring this to a closure, not too far in the distant future, when AIs will wake up consciousness. So computational kindness is something that Brian Christian uses in his book Algorithms to Live By. And it's basically the concept that when you reduce somebody's cognitive load, this is a form of kindness, and this is a computational kindness. Now, the way that he uses it is more in a sociological context, but then kind of bringing it down to a very simple baseline here. And he utters a phrase which is very charming: computers are not only our tools, but also our comrades. They're our friends. They're taking off the computational load. And this is where I want to interject the points to ponder. And one is machine translation can be computationally kind to the non-expert because it already gives you a solution. However, even with the very simple examples that you saw, if you are an expert, you detect the error and you have to go in and mine for the solution. So your computational load increases. And it's a very different experience. So the non-expert experience the kindness, the expert as a decision maker, maybe not so much. And the other aspect of it, if beginners are not motivated to further learn and develop, what are they facing? Is it cognitive stall or decline? And the answer is maybe. Because if the machine does the thinking for you most of the time, and your life is switching from one to another, to another, to another source of information with partial attention but non-stop on, you don't spend enough focused attention that makes your thought process go deeper. When your thought process goes deeper on a biological level, what happens is your brain becomes more efficient, and certain neural connections that don't serve you start falling off. This is called pruning. Now, if you don't get to the moment of pruning, and you're only switching in for a second on something, switching in for a second on something else, switching in for a second on something else, you are on an overload. And if it sounds very close to what a person with ADHD may experience on the inside, yes, this is very similar because pruning is not happening. So machines can help you learn, but machines can stall your learning. And the thing is, learning is not always easy, and you have to make yourself do it, and you have to have the discipline to do it. So as long as you have teachers like us that are old and pedantic, take advantage because we will demand some discipline, and this eventually will benefit you cognitively. In terms of the positive outlook, the two books that came in this year are looking at artificial intelligence. And in co-intelligence, the author sees that we and the machines will be partners down the road, and computers are here not to replace human capabilities, but to augment them. I really like that approach. The other author that focuses on singularity is painting a future in which you basically hook the machine to augment yourself. And this, to me personally, sounds scary. But this author sees it as positive. But both of them are looking to the future with optimism. Now, I did ask the question, what is a skill and what is a skull in this presentation? And the hypothesis that the skill is the machine and the skull is the human was correct. This is what I intended to say. That we can build skills. The computer is actually more skilled than us in terms of speed. But what happens in the skull is not happening in the machine yet. And this is, you're carrying the world and the worlds in your skull. And you're ordering and reordering those. Now, I wanted to ask ChatGPT, what does it think about the skill in the skull? And I gave the following prompt. The prompt was, compile a humoristic abstract of a
talk about humans and machines doing translation. And this is what ChatGPT offered. Listen to the title of this. In this thrilling saga of linguistic and computational confusion, we explore the tumultuous relationship between human translators and their machine counterparts. On one side, we have the skill, the human, armed with cultural knowledge, intuition, and the ability to tell when I'm on fire means something good or something bad. On the other side, we have the skull, the machine, powered by algorithms, code logic, and disturbing habit of translating hot dog into something that makes no sense at your family barbecue. It's very amusing, but it did flip the skill in the skull. And once again, remember, LLMs are syntax-based and don't understand human intent. What did they do here? It's skill, skull, human, machine, and just went like formal ladder kind of structure. And this is how we interpret it. As a human, I claim my birthright to not be consistent and to just do a flow that sounded better and to show you what my implication was. Actually, ChatGPT's answer is kind of amusing. It has a little humoristic thing to it. It does sound artificial too. It brought a smile to my face. I don't know if I would have that tone myself. But I wish I could have created this type of presentation to probably be more entertaining than the one today. And final reasons. So the big question is, okay, I'm here, I'm living and breathing, a legitimate human being. Am I going to be replaced? Am I going to be replaced even before I start my life as somebody who is contributing to a society and an economy? I will ask some counter questions. Did template-based web creation eliminate the profession of a web designer? And the answer is no. Actually, jobs for web designers increased, even with template-based software. The other question is, did machines synthesize sounds that replace musicians? And the answer is not yet. Even though if you're looking at Spotify, there's a lot more machine-generated sound sequences. However, when you go to a concert, what you're looking for is not synthesized sounds. You're looking for an experience, and you're looking for an emotion, and you're looking for modulation of a voice and a connection with somebody who is creating music. So the musicality is still there. And the third question is, did Google Translate, it has existed for a long time, manage to replace translators and interpreters? And the answer is no. The language services industry is the third most fastest growing industry in the world. And it's in the billions right now. It was expected that it will be in about 60-something billion by 2024. It is on pace with approaching 80-something billion globally. So in this industry, though, it's not only translators and interpreters, it's the support system around them. So if you're thinking about, I will employ my bilingual skills augmented by machines to be part of this industry, you can definitely do it. And now you will have to decide where are you going to be within this industry. So I want to share with you a very lucid response by a programmer, and I found his thoughts on the chat, and I wish I could replicate what chat that was, but unfortunately I only have his name. So he was asked if AIs will replace programmers, because there's so much about tedious sequences that have to be done that the machine does quicker and probably better in terms of accuracy compared to a human being. And his response was the following: AI can improve everyone's lower limit and expand their range of abilities. A layman who doesn't know how to code can write a small executable program in an hour. In this respect, AI can provide a basic level of skill. However, as always, more complex problems require more complex knowledge and a sophisticated level of skill. Ultimately, artificial intelligence can only replace or optimize a process. and will give acceptable results to those who can do well what they ask AI to do, but use it to save time. And I think that this is still accurate even a year later after this opinion was shared. So, if I were to give advice to people who want to look into language services industry, consider augmenting their skills as translators and using machines to do that. Where do you start? How do you do it? Where is your place? And I would say that using tools like Google Translate and ChatGPT for translation is a very reliable litmus test for you, the human. What is in the skull for you? At this juncture, using those tools will give you a result. And if you're the type of person that gives a cursory look at this result and say, good enough, let's publish, you're not yet ready to be a translator. Because you still don't know the more complex order of operations. And you still can find a wonderful career. It could be project coordination, talent management, client relations, cultural consultancy, different forms of supporting services, and advocacy. Now, if you're the type of person that looks at language and it is interesting, and it's a puzzle, and it becomes somewhat a passion, maybe becoming a translator who will become the expert in the loop is something for you. If you notice disruptive patterns, have an urge to fix them, oh yes, you will become an expert in the loop. If you enjoy puzzles, don't mind constant fine-tuning and deep research, you will probably try it as a translator. And I have to tell you, in the future, those who become experts will be even fewer than today, and highly sought after. So you have the two paths in front of you, and I think both of them are pretty good. So the future looks bright. And I won't say we've got our shades. Well, this is over.
Anyone have any questions?
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned quite a bit like connotation and denotation. As I understood it, that's the consensus on semantic convention.
Yes.
That's what you
Yeah, denotation.
Okay, so I can't help but see that as AI gets better at translation, that it's going to standardize language and become the ultimate arbiter of convention. If that's true, then what happens to culture? And you can't have a language without a culture, and you can't have a culture without a language. And again, if it's all homogenized, what do we have left?
I share this fear, to be honest. And it really depends on the human participation in this interaction. If we're not lazy, and if we don't let inertia lead us, we are still the decision makers, and we still keep the system open. But if we go like that, we feed AI imperfect information. It teaches our kids imperfect information, which in turn spew back into the system imperfect information, which goes back into imperfect information. This is the worst scenario of GIGO garbage in, garbage out. And it's not only GIGO, it's also a cell, of which is difficult to get out. So yes, definitely, if we were writing an anti-utopia, that will be that will be a scenario. But one thing that humans are very good about is creating chaos, and chaos and creativity go hand in hand. So I believe in the chaos capabilities of humanity. If this is some kind of constellation.
So I can add to that. OpenAI favors 19 languages over all others. So it's not necessarily that the standardization of Spanish, given that the United States is the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world. But there's 19 languages that ChatGPT or OpenAI favors over others. So it's a entire elimination, not just a standardization a language, Spanish, and then say Chinese, the multiple iterations of Chinese. It would be entire cultures, but if you remember that Mexico, for example, there's 99 known languages in Mexico. 91 of them, 90 or less. One of them, one woman for the last 20 years was being followed around by anthropologists. So that language no longer exists. But on the other hand, it does exist through OpenAI. So what is the solution, or what is one aspect we need to consider? People need to travel. You sit in your room doing Google Translate as opposed to going to Cuba, going to Granada in Spain, going to Córdoba in Argentina, then the culture will continue to evolve in a way that's unique between Argentina and, say, Guatemala. Other questions? Other questions?
And to upgrade on this one, yes, I use the skull here, but we cannot only live in our skulls. We have to take our skulls for a walk as well.
One more question? Anyone? No? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Would you mind sharing? No, I don't think so. No, I think everybody understood that
Mucho gusto, finalmente personas.
No, very good. It was very good. I wasn't given the